Hey everyone, I just want to welcome you. I'm going to wait a few more minutes to let some work folks get in, but wanted to let you know that I'm here and welcome you to this webinar about coaching your kids to be overcomers. So we'll just wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and talk through a couple things. First of all, welcome. I'm so excited that you guys are joining me today. I just really feel excited about what I'm going to tell you guys and share with you because I feel very strongly about this. So I just wanted to welcome you first of all and say I'm honored that you would spend some of your time to listen and to learn maybe a little bit of something that will help you as a parent with your kids. This is going to be recorded. So, if you have to leave or you don't get a chance to watch it fully, then, you can have the link later. We'll send it out to you. Also, I did find out that there's like a 15-second delay between me and it getting to you. So if things seem a little weird, that's what's going on. So just wanted you to know that. And so I think I will hope you guys are doing good today. Hey, I'm just going to take a drink. It is hot out here. We're in Florida. I know it's hot everywhere, but I'm in Southwest Florida. And it is dang hot outside. And I'm so glad for air conditioning. So I hope that you guys are keeping cool too. I don't know, what area of the country you're from, but I know it's hot everywhere. My husband went up to, or my son went up to Minnesota last week. And it was hot up there too. So I think it's hot in a lot of places, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started with the information that I want to share with you today. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. And if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box and I will get to them at the end. I'm going to try to answer some questions at the end. And after I've gone through some of this information. So I just want to share with you how you can coach your kids to be overcomers. Basically, it's how to guide your kids without telling them what to do. Now, you say, how the heck do you do that? That's not an easy thing, but I just want to start, first of all, before I get into the info, I want to just introduce myself a little bit to you. I know that some of you probably know me. You probably have read my stuff, but not all of you have. And so today, as we talk about how you can guide your kids without nagging them endlessly, I want to tell you a little bit about myself first. I'm Janis Meredith from JBMTHINKS.com. I've been a coach's wife for 3 decades and a sports mom for 21 years. I'm a life coach. And you say, what the heck is a life coach? Well, I'll explain that a little bit more as we go along. But and I have been in the world of youth sports, as you can tell, for many, many years. And so I kind of say that I see life from both sides of the bench, so to speak, because I've been a coach's wife and a sports mom. So learned a lot of lessons in those years and just really feel passionate about the fact that youth sports is a huge learning opportunity for your kids. So that's who I am. If you read my blog, you know that I'm very up to positive sports parenting and to how you can make a positive difference in your kids' youth sports experience. So I want to talk to you today and start off by asking you a question. What is one of your biggest frustrations as a parent? There's probably a long list of things, but just thinking, what is one of your biggest? And I actually have surveyed a lot of parents, and one of the things that keeps coming up is that our kids don't listen to us. They don't listen to us. Now, they may act like they're listening. Uh, they may let it come in one ear and go out the other. And sometimes as parents, we feel like we're talking to a wall. We feel like we're talking to ourselves. We feel like, I remember I used to think I was talking till I was blue in the face, and it didn't make any difference with my kids. They either weren't listening, or they weren't paying attention, or they were listening but they weren't absorbing it. And even if they did absorb it, it seems like they weren't taking it in and doing what I was suggesting. And as a parent, this is very frustrating because, after all, I mean, we feel that our kids should listen to us. They should hear what we have to say. I mean, we are more experienced. We've lived life longer. We have a lot more wisdom and knowledge than they do. So it's kind of natural to think, well, why don't they take what I say and do it, because I know what I'm talking about. And I don't know about you, but we found with our kids that when we would tell them something, and they may have been listening, but a lot of times they didn't do what we suggested, and yet someone else would come into the picture, some other adult, or maybe a coach, or maybe an older sibling or an older friend would suggest the very same thing that we suggested, and they would go, oh, guess what so-and-so told me today, Mom? And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I had told you that 10 times and you didn't hear me. But that's just the way it is. And I'm sure as parents, you all can totally identify with that. They don't buy into it a lot of times when their parents say it. And I'd like to ask maybe why? Why is that? Well, I think that one of the reasons is that our kids hear us talking all the time. And depending on your relationship with your child, whether it's good or bad, if it's a bad relationship, they probably really tune you out. If it's a good relationship, they probably sometimes still tune you out, because our kids just do that. Even good kids do that. But what I'm going to suggest to you, and you know what, and let me add here too, I think that even the best parents have this problem. You can be the most awesome parent ever and still have this problem that your kids are not listening to you, they're not taking in what you say, or they're listening to you, but they're not acting on what you suggest. And so what I'm going to suggest today is a way to guide your kids without outrightly telling them what to do. And, how to guide your kids when they don't want to be told what to do. How to influence them without always answering their questions. And there's nothing wrong with answering their questions, but I think sometimes there's a time when maybe it's good not to always answer their questions, and let them do a little bit of the thinking. So I'm going to give you some insights today that you can start using actually right away to help guide your child without directly telling him or her what to do. Because most of the time, either they aren't listening or taking it in, or they may not follow through with what you say anyway. So I'm going to give you 3 steps to follow in this process. Step number 1 is called active listening. And I really like this acronym, WAIT, because I think a lot of times we as parents automatically just start talking. And I know I'm the kind of parent that feels like I can fix my kids sometimes with my words. Like, I've got all this wisdom, and if I just told them this, then that should fix it. But sometimes it's good to wait. Why? And ask yourself why you're waiting. Why am I talking? Am I talking to, vent? Am I talking to just try to fix my kid? Am I talking to try to give them an easy answer? Sometimes it's okay to wait and not always come back with something to say about a certain situation. And that's where I want to talk about active listening. Active listening. You think listening is not a passive thing. It's not where you just sit there and keep your mouth shut and not say anything. That's not necessarily listening. Listening involves you as a person fully entering it. It involves listening with all your senses, you know, your eyes, and put the phone down and turn away from the computer and give your child the full attention. And it's important that you you may say, well, gosh, I can multitask. I mean, moms and dads, we can multitask. We're talented. True. I won't argue with that because I've told my kids that many times. However, you may be able to multitask, but your child still perceives, if you're doing something else, that because you're not giving them your full attention, that it comes across to them that you're not really listening wholeheartedly and that you're not totally interested in what they're saying. Now, let me interject here that every conversation you have with your child does not demand that you put everything down and look at them in the face. I think you have to know that there are times when, you're just talking about, oh, don't forget to do this and it's just non-important things really, but you're just talking and chatting. But I'm talking about when your child comes to you and really, you can sense that this is time for a real conversation and a time for you to listen. And your child is struggling with something or they're dealing with something and they need your full attention. This is when you need to practice that active listening. And your child also sees your interest by your verbal and your nonverbal messages. Keeping that eye contact, nodding your head and smiling, agreeing by saying yes or to encourage them as they continue. When you provide this feedback, it kind of puts them at ease a little bit and makes them think, okay, I can keep talking, and therefore they're more likely, if they have your full attention and know that you're really listening, to communicate openly and honestly. And another thing that's hard, I think, for parents is, if we're thinking about all the stuff that we have to do, so we get kind of fidgety and we have to go do this and we have to take care of this and we have to get to this meeting, and we get kind of antsy looking at our watch and we get fidgety. And again, this is an active listener does not do this, and it's really hard, I know, because we live in a fast-paced world where we have a lot going on. But giving your kid the full attention and not fidget or look at your watch or look at your phone or something. And this next piece is something that I really struggle with, and that is the active listener is not sitting there thinking of what to say when your child is done talking. Okay? I'm the kind of person that sometimes I'm tempted to, when I'm listening to someone, I'm thinking ahead to what I'm going to say when they're done. Like, I'm going to tell them this, or I'm going to ask them this, or what about this? That's not active listening. And so, listening fully to what they're saying and not thinking ahead to how you're going to answer them or how you're going to give them some more insight or wisdom. Now, this may mean that there's a little bit of a silent time in there, maybe a few seconds where you're thinking, and that's okay. People sometimes are afraid of quiet, but it's okay to have a few seconds of thinking and to let your child, or you could even say to your child, I'm thinking about this for a second. Just give me a second here, and let them know that you are thinking and taking in what they're saying. Active listening is something that is ongoing throughout your conversation, and it will be something that is going to be ongoing in the next 2 steps that I'm going to share with you. So the first step is active listening. The second step is asking discovery questions. The reason for asking discovery questions is to help your kids start thinking outside of their little box. So their little box may be their own little struggle of sitting on the bench too long, or not getting along with a teammate, or that's their little box right now, and that's what they're struggling with. And so your job is to help them think outside of that box. Now, why do we do this? Why do we ask discovery questions? This is something that this is life coaching right now. Actually, what I'm telling you, this is part of life coaching. And people say, what is life coaching? Well, life coaching is basically when you talk to someone, or you listen and you ask questions, and you help a person resolve a problem, make a decision for the future, but you do it by asking them questions and helping them think and process, basically. That's what a life coach does. And so when you do these kind of things, when you actively listen, when you ask discovery questions, you are basically being a life coach to your child, because you are going to help them think through the situation and learn to figure it out. So whenever we are challenged, when we talk about doing discovery questions, we say, why are they so important? Because they cause us to think bigger. They cause us to think outside of our little box. They cause us to see things differently, and they cause us to process things. And one of our goals as parents is to help our kids learn to think for themselves. And asking discovery questions is one way to start them on that journey. So when I say discovery questions, let me take a quick drink here. When I say discovery questions, what do I mean? Well, let's start with an example, okay? Let's say your child comes home and sits down exasperated and says to you, Mom, Dad, I don't like the fact that I'm on the bench so much. Perhaps your child will spend some time talking about the frustrations. And so at this point, you practice active listening. And as you listen, you can also interject with discovery questions like, well, what do you really like about playing sports? Or describe a time when you were the most satisfied. Now you say that has nothing to do with my child's problem. Well, maybe it does, because you're going to help them to start thinking about why they're doing it and when they've enjoyed it. So questions like, what do you really like about playing sports? Or describe a time when you had the most fun playing sports. Or maybe, what's your goal for playing sports? Middle school, high school, college. These are questions, these are discovery questions to help your child start to think. Now, I will tell you this, that sometimes I would try to have conversations, meaningful conversations with my kids, and if I had asked them a question like, what do you really like about playing sports? I might have gotten the old, I don't know, shrug shoulders, I don't know. How many times do we hear that? Kids like, I don't know, Mom, I don't know. And so as much as that frustrated me, I think that it's at this point when we have to be sensitive to when our kids are actually in a receptive mood. There are times when your kids are in receptive moods and they're willing to talk. They don't mind answering questions and thinking through things. But if they're in the, I don't know, Mom, or I don't know, Dad, if they're in that kind of a mood, you're probably not going to get too far. So, you could try it, come at it from a couple different angles. If they say, well, I don't know, you can say, well, I think you probably do have a pretty good idea. Let's think about it this way. What about this? And, well, what do you think your friends are, it's just takes kind of maybe coming at the question from a couple different angles. And so if you do that and they keep pushing back with the, I don't know, then it might be time to just say, okay, they're obviously not in a mood to talk, so we'll just drop it for now. And that's just something that comes with parenting and being sensitive and knowing your kids. I still do this. My kids are all in their 20s now, and I can sense by when I first greet them or first say hi to them, I can sense what kind of mood they're in. If they're in a receptive mood, if they're not, and I can kind of get a feel for it. And I choose those times to have those heavier conversations with them. So those are just a few examples of questions that you can ask. I'll say them again. What do you really like about playing sports? Or describe a time when you had the most fun playing sports. What's your goal for playing sports? So all these are just to stir up the stir up the dirt a little bit, like when you're farming and you stir up the dirt so you can plant the seed. These are just stirring it up so that your child is just thinking a little bit. And those are just a few examples of questions that you can ask. Now, this again is where active listening comes in, because as your child answers those questions, you must be listening again. You must be engaged and listening for clues about what your child really wants and what's really behind what she's saying. You know, she may be saying, I just hate sitting the bench. Okay. So there may be something more behind that. There probably is more behind that. You say, well, what could be behind that? Well, ask some questions, do a little digging, try to help them think about why they don't like sitting the bench, or what is it about being on the bench that they don't like. And so, you know, you're trying to dig it up and just stir their thinking a little bit and try to figure out what they might be saying. They may not even know why they're thinking that way. They may not even understand it. But when you start asking questions that make them have to think about it and dig a little bit, they could start coming up with some other answers. Because, you know, behind the desire for more playing time, which is what a lot of kids struggle with, like, I just want more playing time, it may really, as you ask questions, it may really dig down to be that your child really wants to develop their skills more. Or maybe your child doesn't like sitting the bench because they want to be, you know, recognized more by their peers. Or maybe your child doesn't want to sit on the bench because they just want more playing game experience. And so there's things behind it that are driving your kid to feel this way, because there are some kids that doesn't bother, that they don't care if they sit on the bench. So, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, you're trying to help your child. The goal of this conversation is to help your child come up with a solution. And in order to do that, you have to start making them think about why they're doing what they're doing and why they enjoy it and why they want to do it. So this is asking discovery questions. It can be a long or a short process. Every conversation is different. Every child is different. Every scenario is different. So you may be asking discovery questions for a few days or a couple weeks even. You know, it might be one conversation and you're able to work through it. So there's no, you know, right and wrong way to do that. It's just, it can be a short or a long process. So, and then as you get to the end, maybe one of the last discovery questions that you might ask is, what do you feel about this situation that would make it better? What could we do to make this situation better? Or what would you like to resolve as we talk here? What would make you feel good about ending our conversation? What would be a home run for you in our talk? If we were to come up with something, what would be that home run? What would be that resolution? And, you know, your child may answer back with, well, I want to know how I can be good enough to get more playing time. How can I be good enough? Or maybe that your child may, you know, say, I want to know how to talk to my coach about playing time. So, okay, so you asked the discovery questions and you've dug a little deeper and you've come up with a little bit more of what your child really wants behind the initial flat answer of what's bothering them. So with that information, with the information that your child's giving you after asking these discovery questions and listening and trying to help them think outside their box, we move on to step number 3, which is discussing options. Now, in a true coaching situation, life coaching situation, there are more steps than I can actually have time to go through in this webinar. That doesn't really allow me to get into it fully and to expand on them, but I'm going to consolidate them into this final step. And that is the step of discussing specific options with your child. So after you ask discovery questions and actively listen to your child, you want to help him figure out what his options are to the questions that he asked to the questions that he asked and answered in step number 2. Okay, let's say he said, I want to know how I can be good enough to get more playing time. So then you say, okay, what are the action steps? What are the specific options that you can do? Ask him what he thinks his obstacles are. What's holding him back? What can he or she do to achieve their goal? Challenge their assumptions a little bit. Don't challenge them a little bit. Don't just say, okay, that's a good idea. Well, push them a little bit, challenge them, make them think a little bit. See if they have any other ideas. Don't, leave them room to think and to come up with their own ideas and to come up with their options. Don't, as hard as it is, if you are trying to life coach your child, let them come up with the answers. Let them come up with the options, not you. You may have a whole head full of them, and I know I do. You may have a whole head full of options, but restrain yourself and let your child come up with the options. Now, you may have to ask more questions and make them to think of those options, but let them come up with their own options. Because when this happens, when you let your child come up with their own options, then the chances are much better that your child is going to actually follow through because they thought of this. This was their idea. They came up with this. I've been in life coaching situations. I've been coached and I've coached others. And in the scenarios where I was coached, I thought, I didn't always go in with high expectations. But as people asked me questions, as the coach asked me questions and made me think out loud, it was amazing what came to my mind. And I don't think we should sell our kids short and not give them the opportunity to think of their own options and to think through things and to come up with their own options. And then once they come up with those options, let's say, we'll back it up again, and let's say they're still struggling with the playing time. And let's say they decide that they want to know how they could be good enough. They want to be good enough to get more playing time. So then what are the options? Well, ask your child, what are the options? What can you do to become a better player? Let them think of the options, and they may list off, well, I should practice more. I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. Let them come up with the options of how they can improve their game and how they can work better and get their skills better, if that's what's behind their struggle. So, you ask them what their obstacles are, you ask them how they can achieve your goals, and you let them think. And then at the end, you end your conversation, which may have been only 5 minutes, or it may have been 20. You end your conversation by asking them how they're going to follow through with this. How are they going to be accountable? Now, accountability here, I want to just caution you that accountability here does not mean that mom nags them or dad nags them. Your child may say, well, when I come home from basketball practice, I need to go out and practice my free throws. I need to shoot 50 free throws. Okay, that's your child. Your child has come up with that option. Now, how can that child have a reminder to do that? It's not you nagging them. That's not the reminder that they need. The reminder that they need may be, it could be an alarm on their phone, or it could be a note on the refrigerator or something. You have to find some reminder that is going to hold them accountable without you nagging them. Because, they may struggle with it and they may not remember. And then they're going to come back to you again and say, I'm not getting enough playing time. And then you can go through the conversation again. Well, what do you need to do? So yes, these kind of conversations hopefully help them stick to it more themselves, but kids are kids, and they're not always going to, do what is best for them the first time around. You may have to have another coaching conversation, and you may have to continue to coach them through it. So I'm at the end of the information. I do want to open it up for some questions if you have any. I'm going to back off my Well, I will in a second. I will come back and see you in just a second. Before I open up for questions, though, I do want to tell you about an opportunity to learn more about guiding your children without telling them what to do. These 3 steps that I gave you are a great starting point, but I want to offer you an opportunity to really dig in and learn more about coaching your child and how to overcome their own problems. And that opportunity is in my coaching group called Sticky Sports Parenting. And in this group, I've actually surveyed quite a few sports parents and asked them for their top problems that they struggle with, their top frustrations. And so based on that, we're going to be in 4 different weeks, we're going to be having a session that tackles the 4 big sports problems. And if you go to jbmthinks.com/sticky, you'll see more about it. But the four subjects that we'll be going over in each of those weeks will be youth sports politics, playing time struggles, coaching conflicts, and pressures from parents and coaches. So those are the 4 things that we're going to be talking about, one each week. And actually, I'm as a life coach, I am going to be coaching you and helping you learn to coach your child through these different scenarios. So I'm going to come back to you now and say hi. And I want to know if anybody has any questions. If you do, just type them in the chat and I will do my best to answer them. I hope that this has been somewhat helpful to you, because I really do believe that if you are willing to not take the easy route. The easy route is to tell your kids the answer. That's the easy route. Coaching them through the answer is the hard way to do it. I know it's the hard way to do it because it takes concentration, and it takes focus, and it takes that active listening, and that's work. That's work for us parents. So I know that the easy route is just to tell them what to do. But I want to encourage you to think, make them think, and to ask them questions. So do you have any questions you want to ask about anything that I've said today? I'll give you a few minutes because I know that we're on a delay here in Google Hangouts. Okay, I have a question here that says, my kids have different personalities. Do you find that there are different coaching styles for different personalities? Yeah, there are different coaching styles, definitely different coaching styles. Unfortunately, we don't always have that choice as a parent to choose the kind of coaching style that's best for our kids. I would like to have chosen, if I could have chosen the coaching style for my kid, then my kid would have had the same kind of coach through their entire sports career. And although that sounds like it would be awesome, sometimes it's not always the best, because sometimes our kids need to learn to get along with people that have different styles. And I do believe, however, that coaches, no matter their style, coaches can learn to coach kids differently, individually. My husband was a coach, and he knew the way certain kids would react. He knew that there were some kids that could be pushed a little more, and he knew that there were some kids that couldn't. So the coach needs to be sensitive to the kids on their team and understand their learning style. But as far as having different coaching styles, you're not always going to have that choice. If you do, then that's awesome, and take advantage of it, but you're not always going to have that choice. And, let me just interject this. My son is now in banking, and he is really struggling with his manager. And I just texted him this morning, and I said, I'm thinking about you and your frustrations with your manager. I said, remember what it was like to play for a coach that you really didn't like? And I said, and now just you played for the team. I said, now you can apply that just to your working situation. So if your child has a coach that they struggle with really figuring out, or the coach doesn't, necessarily appeal to them, it's okay. Let them learn how to understand and get along with a coach, because there's going to be people in their future that in their workplaces, teachers, that they're not necessarily going to understand or get along with, and they're going to have to learn how to forge through anyway. Okay, another question. What are the topics of the classes? And let me look at them again here. The classes are youth sports politics, in other words, the drama, the politics, playing time struggles, if your child has playing time struggles, coaching conflicts, and pressures from parents and coaches. And the question was asked, do you need to be live? No, you do not need to be live. I will be recording those coaching sessions. So if you, you can't make it, it's going to be on a platform called Zoom, which I will send you the link to. But if you can't make it, I will send you that link, and after it's over, I can send you the recording. So even if you don't make it, you could still take advantage of the coaching classes. I will be able to ask you yourself particular questions, but it will be so that you can hear what went on, even though it wasn't you. Because if you're there, I may ask you questions, depending on how big. The group is not going to be very big. I don't want a big group. I want a good group, a smaller group of people that really want to dig in and learn how to coach their kids through these different situations. So the training will be through a video like this, but it'll just be a different platform called Zoom, which I've used quite a bit. So I'm a little bit more familiar with it than I am with Google Hangouts. But we'll be using that one, and it will be recorded, so yes. So any other questions for me as far as coaching your kids, frustrations with them not listening to you? I think that's just an age-old parenting struggle that we all have. I love my kids, and they're, like I said, they're all in their 20s, but sometimes they still don't listen to me. Someone else comes along and says the same thing. So thank you so much for joining me. No more questions today, but I'm just so grateful that you gave your time, and I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks, guys, and I hope to see some of you in the coaching group.